Welcome to our deep dive. This is presented by Safety One Source, and it's really for all you safety professionals, risk managers, anyone looking to get a better handle on workplace safety.
Absolutely.
Today, we're tackling something pretty specific but crucial. OSHA's rules for ionizing radiation in construction. Think X-rays, radioactive materials on site.
Yeah, high energy stuff. And we're zeroing in on OSHA 1926.53, really pulling out the core requirements you need to know.
Exactly. Our mission here is just to clarify what OSHA expects for safe use in these, let's say, construction-related settings.
And it's important to note up front, this isn't OSHA creating something totally new.
Right. That's the first big point, actually. Section 1926.53A, it states very clearly that OSHA follows the Nuclear Regulatory Commission standards. That's 10 CFR Part 20.
Mm-hmm. The NRC's rules for protecting workers from radiation exposure, OSHA essentially says use those.
So they're integrated, not separate rules you have to juggle, but NRC standards are the OSHA requirement here.
Which makes sense, you know. The NRC has deep expertise in this. OSHA leverages that for construction safety. It ensures consistency.
Okay, so building on that foundation, let's talk about who can actually do the work. Section 1926.53B.
This is key.
It says any use of radioactive materials or X-rays. And this is important, whether it needs an NRC license or not.
Right, regardless of licensing status.
Must be performed by competent persons who've had specific training.
Competent and specifically trained. You can't just assign anyone to handle a density gauge or operate an X-ray unit.
No way! Think about the risks if someone isn't properly trained. Misreading equipment, improper handling.
Exactly. The consequences could be serious. So that competence piece, tied to specific training, is non-negotiable according to OSHA.
So competence is the baseline for any use. But then there's another layer, right, for materials that do require an NRC license.
Yes. If you're working with NRC licensed materials, the rule gets even more specific.
It says only people who hold the NRC license themselves or competent individuals working under the direct supervision of that licensee can do the work.
Direct supervision. That means the licensee needs to be overseeing the work closely. It adds accountability.
So it's about control and ensuring that the person ultimately responsible, the licensee, maintains that responsibility on site.
Precisely. It reinforces the NRC's licensing structure within the construction environment.
Now, there's an interesting note tucked away in the standard. It basically points out that many of these construction-specific rules, I think Section C through R,
Yeah, the detailed requirements.
they actually mirror the rules for general industry found in OSHA 1910.1096.
That's a great point. It shows OSHA is aiming for a consistent baseline for radiation safety, no matter the setting.
Whether it's a factory or a construction site, the core principles of worker protection remain the same.
Exactly. A unified safety standard.
Okay, let's boil this down for the listeners, especially the safety managers and risk folks. What are the absolute must-knows?
All right. First, complying with NRC radiation standards isn't optional guidance. It's a direct OSHA rule in construction.
Okay.
Second, competence and specific training are mandatory for anyone working with these radiation sources. No exceptions.
Okay. And third, for those higher risk NRC licensed activities.
You need either the licensed individual doing the work or someone competent working under their direct supervision. Stricter control there.
Makes sense. And finally, these construction rules aren't isolated. They align with the broader OSHA standards for radiation safety.
Right. It's all part of a larger framework.
So understanding these points is fundamental for compliance and, more importantly, for protecting workers.
Absolutely. It's about having the right people with the right training and oversight following established expert-driven protocols.
So as a final thought for everyone tuning in, this deep dive highlights OSHA's framework, but the real work is implementation. We really encourage you to look at the specifics in 1926.53 and 10 CFR Part 20.
Definitely dig into the details that apply to your specific operations.
And maybe ask yourself, where could a gap in understanding these specific radiation rules potentially create risk on my sites? Something to think about.